beautiful weather here now. We got a lot of rain the past week, and now the sun is out, and the grass is going crazy, and everything's in bloom. It's beautiful. Um, and that's kind of going along with how Mount Soma has been going on. I just wanted to do a little progress report. The kitchen remodel is finally finished. We got the building permit and everything. We got the final inspection done. There are a couple of little things that need to get taken care of. I think May, what is it, the 3rd, is it? That a week from yesterday, we will be able to open the dining again. And we're excited about it. The kitchen is really beautiful. And I want to thank the community here for all the donations. And we really felt supported. It was just unbelievable how people, stepped forward. And so we have a beautiful kitchen, all new stainless steel everything, and induction plate cooking, and it's just fabulous. The whole place is just beautiful, So thank you to everyone who supported. I humbly thank you, And so today's topic is the number one secret of good relationships. Now we can say it in a word, but of course a whole book could be written on it. But we'll try to do our best to say it in a nutshell here in just a short podcast. And that'll, I think, at least point people in a direction that we can figure out pretty much on our own from there. We don't really necessarily need the book, But the number one secret to good relationships, I know Maharshi said, he was asked about relationship. He said one thing to say about relationship. He said relationship should be easy. No, 3 things he said. Number 1, relationship should be easy. Number 2, easy. Number 3, it should be easy, like that. And that says it in a nutshell. But the question is, what does that look like? And I have to say, right now at Mount Soma, our team, we've been doing this for years. We started in 2002, and of course we had a lot going on for the decade prior. But the team we have now, I have to say it's the best team we ever had. And I think the main reason is because it's easy. And what constitutes easy? People are working hard, but what makes it easy is everybody just gets along and enjoys being here and is committed to the purpose, I love Mount Soma. And now with the nice weather, today's Sunday, just yesterday, Saturday, a lot of people were here, and it's just so heartwarming, especially the children. They really touched me. I was down there yesterday. I say down there because my house is, up the hill a little bit from the temple. And there's a field there in front of the visitor center, and people are all out there congregating, and they bring their food, and they picnic, and it's just beautiful. And I remember I saw these 2 little girls. They were, on their hands and knees, and I could tell they were, maybe I was projecting, but I believe they were looking for 4-leaf clovers, and it just so sweet, And Mount Soma then is just doing so well, and all of the workers, it's like we're all dedicated to a cause. And what's the cause? It's to make the place harmonious, to make the place beautiful, for it to be a place where people can come, go to the temple, enjoy their families, enjoy the environment. And the feeling is just so exquisite. There was one of the people that work here, Brian, was telling me that he was, walking along. It's on a weekend, so it's really busy. And in front of him, a couple of Indian women were walking. And he overheard one of them say to the other, she says, "Can you feel this here?" And they looked at her and she said, That's God. She said, you can feel God here. God is here, something like that. I just thought it was beautiful, you know. And we get so many comments like that, even people who have no idea what Mount Soma is about. Even some of the subcontractors we had working on the kitchen remodel, and they made the comment. It's just the feeling here is just, there's something really special about it, you know. So the question then, and the topic is, you know, what constitutes that? You know, how does that come about? Now, certainly the temple, the havans and the pujas and everything that's going on, there's so much going on there too. We're hoping to hire an additional pundit soon. And I guess I'm free to talk about this. The pundit we're looking at is from the Balaji temple, Tirupati, you know, the biggest temple in, you could argue, I guess, in India, the kind of like the Vatican of India. I mean, certainly based on volume and that, there's no question, but it's exquisite. I have stories about the Tirupati temple, as many people do, but it's just so much Shakti there, so much power there. It's wonderful. So at any rate, one of the pundits there is finishing up his PhD in Vedic studies, and sounds like a wonderful man. And I think he'll probably be the pundit we add on. So that'll be great, and I'm looking forward to talking with him. What incredible knowledge, you know. Vedic pundits have so much knowledge, and then they get a PhD in Vedic studies on top of it is really intriguing to me, you know. So there's some principles about relationships and when they're easy, so especially in a group dynamic where we have a group of people here that are, we could say, operating Mount Soma, and even the guests coming here, they become part of the group dynamic, at least for the time they're here, and probably onward as a community in a distance, you know. But there's a principle, one principle is called the Meissner effect. And that is that one little crack in a group coherence kind of can undermine the thing. That's why it's so important that everybody, I remember when I was in the ashram, we used to just playfully, but we'd say it commonly, it became like a slogan, you know, just in fun, but in truth at the same time. We would say positive, positive, always positive, you know. And that's so important because it keeps the group coherence pointed in the same direction, all for one, one for all. And that brings about this principle, the Meissner effect, where, you know, if you have the plastic that goes around the lid on a pickle jar when you first buy it, and, you know, try as you might with your thumb or whatever to try to peel that off, it will not come off. It's because it's totally coherent. There's a group coherence of every molecule of plastic in the top. But all you have to do is take one little knife or scissors or whatever, and just do one little cut in the plastic. And so that's a little crack in the coherence, you know, and the whole thing just peels right off. And that's why it's so important that you have a group of people that get along, and a group of people that are committed to getting along. We'll always have arguments, disagreements, whatever you want to call it. But how do you deal with those? And can there be a commitment to doing it in a way that is easy and harmonious and maintains the group coherence? And that's the thing. I mean, I'm going to meet with the whole group of, you know, people that are working here in the reservations and the kitchen and all that in a few days. And the amazing thing is that they spontaneously do that. I haven't really sat down with them and had a formal discussion of all of this, but I will in a meeting. But what's so gratifying is that we have a number of people here that are just so dedicated in spirit to that approach. Now, Scotty, really, you're the Scotty. You have a lot of experience, managing groups, and I think you ran a Ritz-Carlton and different businesses like that. And you were telling me I think it was something you heard that Maharshi had said. I'm not sure about that, but it involved a superconductor. Tell us about that. Did we lose you, Scotty?
He said when a superconductor works, it's because all the molecules are lined up and they're moving in the same direction.
All the electrons, I guess.
All the electrons, everything, and that's why they have to bring it down to like absolute zero. Which brings me to what you talk about, where you go to that unified field, is where everything is aligned, everything is incoherent, is coherent, and there's no distortions. And when I brought that to the salespeople with Ritz or Marriott or wherever we were, it was always just about having the eye on what we needed to accomplish. And if there was anything, because everybody always has something in their mind of how it should work, or this isn't fair or whatever, it doesn't mean that that's not going to be there, but how you play that out or how you introduce that to the group consciousness needs to be with the mind on the prize, which is the success of everything.
It's really a good point, because it's always going to come about that somebody feels like the way thing is structured or whatever isn't fair. And so the question is, how do you deal with that? And can you deal with that in a way that keeps that coherence flowing harmoniously forward?
Right.
Because one little electron that goes against the coherence of the group throws off the whole coherence.
Yeah. And it picks up.
Another neat thing you said, Scotty, was that where do these superconductors come from, so to speak? It's absolute zero. It's cooler and cooler and cooler.
Right.
And that's, and so what is the embodiment, the personification of the absolute? Infinite coherence, infinite harmony. Well, it's Shiva. And where does Shiva like to live? On a mountaintop, remote. You don't see that many riots in the wintertime. They're in the summertime, because the cooler weather just naturally brings coherence. And so, that's why Mount Soma is located where it is. We're up on a mountain, and we're, really not that close to certainly any big cities are hours away. And it's that way for a reason. It's supposed to be that way. I remember Pandit Prasad made a comment once. He said, Shiva likes the mountains. This is where Shiva temple is supposed to be. Just tangentially, it does make it a little difficult because it's seasonal here. We don't have that many visitors coming up here in the dead of winter, and so the way, really, to be really objective about it, the majority of the support we receive is from people that come in the spring, summer, and fall. And we're open year round, and not that much happens here really in the wintertime, but that's the way it's supposed to be, So say more, Scotty, about this whole, what you were saying about the Marriott where you worked and Ritz-Carlton and all that. I find it very interesting.
Yeah, because we had 100 salespeopeople, and you have your management, all the management team, and you have your goals and everything else that you have to do as a management team to keep everybody on track. But inevitably there's some ideas of how things should be or whatever, and it's like brings me back to what you're talking about, Easy. We used to have meetings set up so that our management team would take so many of the salespeople and every month be meeting with them to find out, okay, how are you? What's going on? Tapping in to where they were and all that. And at the same time, okay, we need to listen. Can we implement this? Can we not? And so you have to talk about it. And that's what I think what you're talking about easy. Relationships have to be easy, easy, easy. You have to be easy with understanding where their whatever mindset or whatever they're bringing to the table, and then it has to be portrayed to them that they have to be easy with whatever it is their ideas are, about how to implement those things, because cannot create incoherence, because as soon as it does that, then it multiplies.
Yeah, there was a big business person who was at Mount Soma, came to classes and that, and he said something once that was really interesting, that they didn't say some form, gossip, negativity, but I think they used the word gossip. They said, I would substitute the word negativity in general, destroys organizations. It's that powerful. It breaks down the coherence. And so you're so right, Scotty, that when there's an issue, and they will come up, can people deal with that and handle that in a way that is harmonious? Because harmonious equals easy, and it's not automatic, because we all have our issues and things that come up, and the question is, how do we handle those? How do we deal with that? Do we throw more negativity and conflict into the thing? Another thing that she talked about with respect to gossip, if somebody has a situation, this is really interesting, Scotty, that they're not happy with, what do? It's not uncommon for them to go to this person and complain about it, and then go to that person and complain about it, and then go to the next person and complain about what they're doing, and they don't mean to. See, that's a big, important part of this, is these people aren't necessarily intentionally negative. They're usually not negative. They're well-intended. But the way they're going about trying to, elicit change for the better is destructive.
Yeah.
Do you guys talk about that much, Scotty, in your business?
Absolutely. So we had a formula for talking about things or whatever. Come to somebody that can make a difference. You know what I mean? Like what we talked about was talking to your, fellow employees and people that, like your peers in the group, doesn't help. You need to get those things handed to somebody that can do something about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it also has to do with a hierarchy. There's a system, and I think particularly at a place like Mount Soma, where we're all friends, and so that just spontaneously, you want to talk to your friends, I think in business world, out there in the world, people have their job, and then if they're feeling negative, they'll go home and talk to their friends or their spouse. But here we're all friends, and so it's very easy for that hierarchy structure to just spontaneously and naturally, even unintentionally, but just they can't help it, it gets compromised. And it really makes it hard for me, because I'm sort of the overseer of the whole thing, because when they go to all these different people, then one by one these different people eventually get to me, and then I have to try to resolve it not just once, but multiple times with each individual that this upset person spoke with, and it makes it hard, So that's why there is a structure there, and the structure, Scott, you can comment on this, has to be done in a way where, okay, this is your supervisor, and here's the flow chart. We got me, then we got some department heads, then we got sub-department heads for those smaller departments, each reporting to their department head. And so there's a natural channel, a natural flow. And then especially it gets complicated because every one of these departments is intermingled, functionally speaking, with the other departments. The kitchen has to know what's going on with housing. And housing needs to know, of course, what's going on with reservations, and reservations needs to know as all these departments need to know what's going on in the temple and what ceremonies are planned and at what times. And so it's a whole mass integrative thing. And so it gets complicated, you know. But again, there's one solution. Easy, positive, make it easy. And I think people's personal issues come into play, Scotty, so readily because, you know, if somebody comes from a childhood where they were suppressed and pushed down and not heard, then they feel the only way that they can be heard isn't through an easy means, but it's to do what they learned from childhood, which is, push others down, fight your way through, confront. And so people's childhood issues come into these dynamics of what makes what otherwise would make a group coherence smooth and flowing like a superconductor.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? I imagine you talked about that a lot in your groups too, about how people's personal issues come into play.
Absolutely, you know, and that's where those individual meetings with the managers, so that you could really understand each individual, how they operate, you know, what is their mode of function. We talked about that a lot, you know, like we had you out with
yeah, that's right,
5 divine currents, and
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and understanding that, you know, and just giving people the tools to, you know, understand the dynamics of, you know, there's 100 salespeople that are, you know, the salespeople are trying to, you know, like they try to convince people to do something. So they're professionals at convincing people to do things. So managing
more than 100 people. I mean, what do we have here? More than 10 people on staff, but I think probably less than 20.
Yeah.
So 100, wow.
Yeah.
And the thing about that too is people don't really feel like they have an issue. They feel like they're right. And it's really hard for people to be able to take a step back and look at, you know, their issues, how their childhood wounding, if you will, or their childhood impression, their childhood conditioning has stepped in. And so it's not really a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of understanding. And a lot of people, you know, it's not easy for people to really understand themselves. You know, to thine own self be true is not all that easy.
Mm-hmm.
But you had success with that, huh, Scotty?
Yeah, we had success, but then we had challenges too, because, you know, also you have your leadership, depending on where you are in the leadership, you know, ladder of things. There's some leaders that want to rule by complete, you know, like you will participate and you will enjoy, you know, so you have all of these dynamics going up and down the ladder, you know, and so at some time you're always, you know, something's trying to spin out of balance. So, you know, when we were the most successful, we had our, you know, to use the cliche, finger on the pulse of everything. That's when we were humming on all cylinders, is when we were able to, you know, manage that chain up and down and keep it from
through the hierarchy, so to speak, up and down.
Yeah, because there's always somebody that's trying to put some input, or you get, and then there's always some dynamic that's changing. Things are coming in, they're going out. It's like the, you know, presidency or what's happening in the government. You know, one guy comes in, he's going to lay down how he's going to do it. The other side is like, you know, they don't realize that, you know, hey, there's the eye on the prize. We need to all be succeeding. You know what I mean? And then how do we manage these things? Because you can't always control these variables that are coming at you. But like you said, if you're easy with things, everything's going, you know, and then it's even harder if there's some kind of challenge from a success standpoint.
And then there was something, there you go. There was something else you said, at least sort of it's a success standpoint, but that everybody has a common goal.
Yeah.
And if your commitment is to that common goal,
yeah,
then it makes the thing easy because you're not going to throw a monkey wrench in the deal. You're going to try to do it in a way that's harmonious. If you're just dedicated to the common goal, let's make this work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
I always used to bring it back when given the meetings about, I always played these videos about these mountain bikers or like extreme mountain bikers or extreme snowboarders. And I was like, you know, talking about how do you think these guys survive these missing these obstacles or doing these things? It's because they're looking down the road at what they want. They're not looking at the stuff that they don't want to have. They're looking at the things that, you know, that's how they survive. If these guys look any other way, they're going to die, you know, in that case.
it's really beautiful, Scotty.
Yeah.
The analogy is like water coming down from the mountaintop and the rivers and streams gets created. They follow the path of least resistance, not the path of greatest resistance.
Right.
You know, and that is really, that's the whole evolutionary path of our own evolution as individuals, spiritually and in every regard, you know. Now there's another interesting thing here that relates to this. I guess it's tangential, but it comes up. Is there's a, you know, in the Vedic literature, there's the right-handed tantra, and then there's left-handed tantra. And, you know, right-handed tantra is like engineering. Proper meditation, that's tantra, but it's right-handed tantra. And there's left-handed tantra. Right-handed tantra would be like if a fuse burns out in your fuse box in the basement, you get a new fuse and put it in and the lights go back on. With left-handed tantra, it's like, well, instead of going and getting a fuse, just take a little aluminum foil and stick it in place and then the lights go back on. And so with left-handed tantra, you can get huge dramatic results quickly, but you can burn the house down. And there's so many dramatic stories. I lived in India for a while. I lived in the Philippines for a while. I saw it a lot. But there was this one guy, he actually came to the United States. This was decades ago. But he got a big, huge following as a guru. And here's the interesting thing, because I knew somebody who was in the inner circle of that organization for a while. And the way they did it was they had rolled out a big red carpet. And I mean, they filled football stadiums with, you know, people. But they rolled out a red carpet. And then they'd have, you know, people standing on either side of the red carpet. At the end of the red carpet was the guru guy sitting on a throne. And then they'd get the wealthy donors. This is a true story. They'd get the wealthy donors, and one by one, they'd have them walk down the red carpet to go get blessings from the guru. And as they walked up there were these left-handed tantra experts interspersed among the people that would zap their chakras. And it's really unhealthy for the chakras because chakras are supposed to blossom. They're not supposed to detonate, you know. But there are techniques where you can blast open the chakras, tear them open. And so they go down there and boom, and then another guy down here, boom, boom. And so by the time these wealthy donors got in front of the guru guy, they were seeing lights and they were, you know, all this energy pouring in because their chakras were ripped open, and they look at this guru guy and, you know, lights were coming out his eyes and his ears and everything was glorious, and they give him all their money. And that actually worked for a long time until finally people figured out, you know, what was going on, which is another story, but no need to get into that now. But the point is, left-handed tantra is real. People have dramatic results from it. They think they're getting enlightened, but really they're going insane. And it's very common. Now, to my experience, in India has a long history of spiritual knowledge and stuff. And they're on to that. I mean, there's a guy doing left-handed tantra on every corner, you know. And so the Indians are just naturally have their antennas up with that regard. In the West, it's not that common. We're new to Vedic knowledge and all of that. And so, well, people even go to healing schools and learn how to tear people's chakras open, and they call themselves healers. I mean, it's horrible. And also people who are sincerely dedicated to the spiritual path. I mean, somebody goes in there and rips open their chakra, and all of a sudden they're seeing lights and feeling all this bliss. And they think the guy enlightened them. They think this guy's some kind of spiritual master. And so what do? They try to learn those same techniques, and it creates a whole left-handed tantra movement. And so those are the kind of things that you have to watch for. And I know I've lectured in my classes. I lectured till I was blue in the face. There's so many stories I could tell about this sort of thing. And I do in my classes. But it's almost like, because I've seen very good, very sincere, wonderful, beautiful people have that happen to them. You go to somebody like a healer or some guy who tears open their chakras, and it's like once that happens, people, they're gone. It's a little bit like I've heard that, you know, some people, if they take one shot of heroin, that's it, they're addicted. And it can be left-handed tantra can be like that. I remember once, and I heard this story. I didn't hear it directly, so I'm repeating what I heard, and not directly. But there were people that were going to go see some guru up in the Himalayas, and they were there with a master. And so he got wind of the fact that they were going to go see this guy, and he made the comment. He said, if you go see him, we will find your dead body floating down the Ganges. They were along the Ganges River. And it took me years to figure out what. See, he wasn't saying that literally that they were physically going to die, but what he was saying that spiritually, it could be devastating. It's, I think, well known that those kind of things, when you do things with people's chakras like that, I go into detail on this in my lectures, but just to say it briefly, things get stuck between the petals of the lotus flowers of the chakras. It can take lifetimes to clear that out. I even knew a teacher in the West here who taught people pry open their third chakra, their chakra, pry open their chakra, and then take little stakes, like a collar, lapel collar things, little stakes or whatever, and cram them in there so that it holds the chakra open. And that's just horrifying to me, you know. So we do well to be careful. You know, like they say, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is too good or not good or whatever. Yeah. All right. So anything else, Scotty, about all that?
No, I think that's says a lot.
Yeah. So razor's edge, walking the razor's edge. And it's so easy to just stay positive, sunny side of the street. If there's things that you don't like, you know, work with it in a way that's supportive, that's positive. And if people can just do that, and it applies also to even in a marriage, if both people are committed to easy, they go a long way. But if either one is not committed to easy, if they don't want to do easy, if they want to be committed to the negative component of the whole thing, there's not much hope.
You heard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. That was a lot. That was just in a nutshell. So explore it on your own. I'm sure I said things here that I didn't say quite perfectly. So you have to find the truth within your own self. But I think these were pretty good guidelines. Huh, Scotty?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.